there, thank you for joining me. If you're not aware, if this is the first time you visited the channel, I'm Anah Parreli, and basically I share my information and knowledge on the channel for people to access for basically the expansion of their own development and awareness. And in this particular video, it's actually part 2. I would recommend, if you haven't seen part 1 yet, that you go and check that one out first, because this is actually really important as far as numerology goes. It's one of the most technical aspects of using numerology, is to look at what we call the peaks and pyramids, because this gives some really deep insight as to the life path of all of us. And I'll talk about that in a minute, but the bottom line is we have to be accurate when we do it, because if we're not accurate when we create the pyramids, then it's going to create, obviously, flow on inaccuracies throughout the predictive aspect. And there certainly is a predictive element to using the peaks and pyramids. It's got multiple purposes. But anyway, going back to it, yes, please, I would recommend that you look at part 1 before you come into this particular video. If you've already watched part 1, I'm going to give a little bit of an outline, cover a bit of ground here. I've put chapter descriptions or links into the description so that you can jump ahead if you want to and just go straight on to what the interpretations are of each peak on the chart. But for now, I'm just going to refresh and remind everybody. Sorry, I'm struggling to get cracking this morning. I've got up very early to get this content done. But anyway, so going on, what can I share with you? Basically, just a reminder that you start by doing your own pyramid. I think that's always the easiest way to do it. And if you want to pause the video and go and get a pen and paper, I would recommend that maybe get 2 different coloured pens. It might make it easier for you while you get the hang of doing the pyramids and the peaks. This is stuff that I used to do, so I'm just giving you strategy on how to do it until it's embedded in your brain. Peak 1, peak 2, the placement, stuff like that, and also the years and the peak values, but we'll talk about that in a moment. So also, refresher, if you're very young or a young adult and you're doing these pyramids for yourself, the reality is you're looking at a potential or a predictive aspect. It's not necessarily going to happen, but it also, well, the peaks will happen, but they are potentials, and it's up to you. It's your responsibility to utilize the energy that is available to you to be able to maximize positive outcomes when you get to those peaks. If you are mature age, as in probably over the age of about 57 or whatever, it becomes a reflective tool. The last peak you'll see on the first video, I think the oldest a person can be before they hit the 4th peak is about 57 or 58. So just a reminder that when we talk about the peaks, just because you've finished your final peak doesn't mean that life has come to an end and you may as well just go and finish it or whatever. What it means is, as we age, physiologically we get changes, so we become past our peak. I mean, we already know that, I'm not in my prime anymore. How many times have we heard that? Well, we're not. It doesn't mean that life doesn't go on and that there's not joy down the track. It just means that we don't have the same peaks. And when we talk about the peaks, we're actually talking about maturing anyway, reaching emotional maturity. And by the time we're 57 or 58, we've certainly probably developed our personalities, that sense of who and what we are and our identity, to the point where it's not really going to change a lot after that age. It may even stay completely the same. And I'm talking about emotional maturity there. There's always room to change, though. I don't rule anything out. Anyway, okay, another reminder for parents or other people that when it comes to the shaping of personality and maturing, what I find very interesting is that when we use Pythagorean numerology, it does refer, if we were to do it in its entirety, looking at the ruling number and day numbers and all the rest of it, this is what you would put into a report. It does refer to the environment as playing a pivotal role in shaping the personality. Now, the reason I'm mentioning that is because I want to put it to you to just have a think about this. Pythagoras is allegedly, he created this form of numerology, or he passed on the information. It's been going on before him, I believe. many, many thousands of years ago. Well, I know when I was doing my Bachelor of Social Work that we actually referred to these environmental influences throughout the childhood years as being the social determinants of health. And there's plenty of scientific evidence to support the fact that, yes, actually, becoming a responsible, mature adult is not simply the byproduct of even nature. It is not just the byproduct and contributions of parental shaping that creates a person or a personality. It's a whole number of things. So it's worth remembering that. And for those parents, I just want to share with you that it's so beneficial if you've got young children or even if you've got older children, because what we're seeing more and more of today is the fact that the parent and adult child relationships are becoming more strained. There seems to be this whole big family breakdown, and the parents are just absolutely beside themselves over what's going on within these relationships and very confused by it. But what I would say is, in this instance, I'm not a lot different. I've had some family relationship breakdowns, and that includes with adult children that have caused me huge internal conflict as a parent, wondering why, personalizing it. It must be me. I've done something wrong that, these relationships have gone this pathway. Now, the beauty of doing the pyramid and peaks, certainly for me, is that I did the pyramids again for my children. I'd forgotten about it. And when I looked at it, I was able to move on and detach by whatever's going on in our relationships, because I can actually see very clearly that these situations are part of the divine path for, I'm thinking of one adult child in particular. It's part of that child's growth. I'm avoiding using gender because I've got boys and girls, and I'm trying to protect privacy, even though I don't use my real name on here. There is always that risk that it could be disclosed. But the bottom line is, where I'm going with this is that I don't hold any emotional turbulence with this. I can just respect and accept this is the person's journey. This is part of them growing. And what is going on between us at the moment is perfect for my child's development, because this is how this person was destined to achieve maturity, and they, for their divine plan, need to undergo this experience. Frankly, I think to myself, I would have preferred different ways of going about it. But at the end of the day, if I believe in a divine plan, then I respect the fact that I have made a choice to be part of this process before my children were born. Throwing that out there. Put your feedback up about that if you like. My understanding is that we all make choices about our parents anyway before we're born, and it becomes negotiated as part of the divine plan that we pick the perfect family members to help us to develop ourselves for whatever it is that our soul or soul pack needs. That might be a conversation for another day. But anyway, moving along, because I'm waffling and it'll end up being a very long video. I'll try and speed it up. Just to let you know, what I have done is the next two slides, remember I've put chapters in, the next two slides, the one on Pythagoras, I've just copied and pasted over from the previous one because I didn't want to have to rehash it. And then the third slide today, when we talk about predictions, I am going to speak to that again. It is a copy slide, but I'm going to put new voiceover on it. And then from there, we go into the predictive aspects. Okay, so just giving you some insight there. And I'm going to crack on because look at that, we're almost at 10 minutes anyway. So before we go into the construction of pyramids, I want to give you the background of how the pyramids were created as a numerological tool, as far as I know it. You, of course, may have different information. Once again, I invite you to put your comments up. So anyway, my understanding goes to that the idea or the concept of pyramids was something that was designed by Pythagoras as a means of showing when a person has reached certain stages of maturity as part of their divine plan and their own personal, unique and individual growth. Now, each of the peaks in the pyramid, because there are 4 of them, represent a culmination of experiences, and they also represent a 20-year cycle of 9 years. So we're talking about a 9-year cycle. Every 9 years there is a culmination of growth and experience. Now, the reason why there are 9-year cycles lies in the association with the number 36, and this is because the number 36 is a square number. It's believed to be a mystical number and the number of creation, and it's also associated, interestingly, for Pythagoras in the book of Numbers of the Bible. Now, of course, I'm talking about the First Testament. Now, just as a slight deviation here, because I find it somewhat humorous because I've got a bit of a warped sense of humour. In the book of Numbers in the Bible, the summary of it is that the Creator God reminds Israel and the Jews that he doesn't tolerate rebellion, complaining, and disbelief without consequences. So we're talking here about karma as I would understand it. And I just want to reiterate, I'm not in the Bible per se, but when I look at what has occurred throughout the book of Numbers, it is a case most definitely of maturation and emotional maturity, because when these people, it refers to the leaving of Egypt, where Moses leads the slaves out of Egypt to freedom, and where they're travelling from slavery to their destination and their homeland. Poor old Moses, I've got some sympathy for. He's leading a bunch of whingers, we would call them in Australia. They're complaining all the time about being hot, tired, thirsty, complaining about snakes, complaining about everything, and they get their consequences, shall we say. Now, the reason why I find humour in this is because I'm Australian, and as a child, my parents used to take us regularly on very long journeys across the Nullarbor plains. We used to travel from Western Australia to our homeland every 1 or 2 years. And of course, we weren't walking, thank God, but we were in a car, and my poor old parents had to listen to us children going, "Are we there yet? I'm thirsty, I'm hungry, I need to go to the toilet, I don't like that," constantly. And so this is part of growing up, and this is why I can understand straight away when I look at this business of Book of Numbers and maturation, because as we get older, we realise, you know what, we can whinge and complain as much as we like and, make everybody around us suffer with our incessant complaints, but it doesn't actually change the nature of the journey. The journey is going to continue regardless of the challenges that we face. So we have to learn to control our emotional responses and reactions to the challenges that we face. So this is peak one, basically, learning how to monitor and manage our emotions, and peak one refers to the type of learning that we've gathered, the power that we have accumulated through this process of emotional maturity. The second cycle of life, of course, lasts for another 9 years, and this refers to understanding of the experiences. Now, if we were looking at in a modern context, which we will be, it's talking about not only understanding of life, but also the development of financial security and creating a sense of environment around us where not only have we managed to harness, control, or master our emotions, but we're also, throughout the second stage, we're learning to master our thoughts, the power of the mind, and to direct our actions towards achievement. The third cycle, of course, now this is different. This is a time of personal and inner development, the development of self-awareness and expansion of our consciousness. Now, I just want to put the point in here too, because in my own observations of doing my own pyramids as well, I looked at it and I thought, I feel a little ripped off. I've had a peak in here, and I don't feel that I actually managed to get the benefit of it. And then I realised that actually there's going to be delays for all of us with some of these peaks because of the COVID lockdown. It's impacted on our capacity to experience the fullness of life because there was a lot of isolation. I mean, at the same time, it may have worked out differently for other people. The isolation may have actually provided a point for a person to take that time. If they hadn't been taking any time to focus on their development, this cycle through that time frame may have actually allowed them to reach whatever stage of life they're at. So if it was emotional harnessing, they might have learned to manage their emotions during this time frame. If it was about understanding life and getting meaning to life, they may have managed to gather it through the COVID lockdowns as well. Mine because I'm a mature person, I'm an older person, I was in the higher cycles, if you like. I was supposed to actually reach a fourth peak there. And this is why I say, I don't see that one coming to fruition at that time. The fourth peak is associated with the concept of spiritual attunement. And according to Pythagoras, this is my understanding, that when we've attuned to the spiritual and our divine connection, we do continue to grow and learn, and we continue to live. Now, there's also the point made by Dr. Phillips that while people continue to grow and learn, we will continue to live. There is this longevity of life, but we as human beings are subconsciously programmed to thinking that we don't live past 2 digits. Now, the reason I'm making this point is because the 27-year lifespan of the cycles, shall we say, it can look like when we're looking at the pyramids that, oh my God, my last peak is at, say, age 60, and that must mean that I die after age 60. No, we're not talking about that. We're talking about the prime, the prime of life. This is what the peaks are. And of course, once we reach that fourth peak, yes, of course, we're going to continue to grow and evolve and develop if we choose to. And I just wanted to make a reference here that this business of people living as centenarians, there is this common perception that their mind is gone by the time they reach that stage. Well, look, that's not true. And I know that from doing my ancestry research, and I do genealogy on the side because I enjoy it. And it was not unusual in the early days of Australian colonisation for the colonists to, and even convict stock, to live to the age of 107. It really was not that rare. And when I was doing some research, I was looking for a particular ancestor of mine. I didn't find him, but I found somebody by the same age who was reported in the paper to be about 120. Now, I was mind blown. At the stage that it was reported he was 120, the locals were saying he'd become a little bit feeble and he couldn't actually remember when he was born or his date of birth. But they remembered, because he'd been in the community for so long, that when he was in better health, he used to talk about his memories of seeing the French coming over the hills in the war when he was ploughing the fields. And he had told them he was 18 when he saw this occur. At the age of, he was 120, because I found his entry into the country through the passenger lists and arrivals. And so, yes, he would have been 120 is where I'm going. But at the age of 120, they said that he was just a little bit more feeble than he used to be, but he was still able to plant a potato crop that year. He was interviewed by the paper. The reason I'm mentioning this is because I'm well aware that our older folk that might be interested in watching this video, I want to reassure you, just because you've passed your peak and your prime doesn't mean that there's not opportunity and great wonder for you as you go through the rest of your life. So just to repeat, when we do the pyramid and the peaks, we are talking about, if you're a mature person or older, you will be looking at the pyramids as a reflective type tool, gaining understanding and insight. If you're a younger person, you're looking at potential. And if you're a parent doing your children's, you're looking at potential as well. Now, of course, before we can actually create or get any form of insight as to what are the life peaks, we have to know the ruling number. So I have used this birth date here, 29th of December 2014. The ruling number for that birth date is actually the number 3. From there, I can establish how old the person is going to be when they have their first peak. So their first peak is going to happen when they're 33, second one when they're 42, third one when they're 51, and the fourth one when they're 60. Now, so what I've done to make it easier when we look at this is why I say 2 pens is probably better. I have put the year, because what I've done is I've added the age 33 to 2014 to get the first peak at 2047. And this is why I've used the pink, okay? The pink shows the year the person is going to make achieve those peaks. Then from there, what I've done is in the different coloured the black, I have written the value of each peak, what that person can expect to be occurring in that year. Now, you can see there's actually recurrences here as well, because we have, for this person, they've got a peak 5 in peak years 1 and 3. And then you see that peak 2 is a 9. So that is worth bearing in mind, is when you are doing your own calculations and your charts, is yes, there will be quite often recurring numbers that occur. And I think this is not just about the potential for repeating patterns. It's kind of like if you failed to learn the lessons of number 5 in 2047, well, don't stress it, because by 2065 you will. Things like that come into play as well. But then at the same time, depending on the meaning of the number, there is still going to be growth and perhaps consolidation of the vibration of the number by the time we reach a certain age. Now, just to give you another tip here, when it comes to doing the peaks, the numbers are always going to be the same. So you're going to look at the message for number 5, and that's the message for number 5. It's the same whether it's peak 1, peak 2, peak 3. It's going to be the number 5. It doesn't actually change. So bearing that in mind, if you've got any questions, pop them up and I will look at them later. But let's get into it right now so that we can rush this through as best we can. So in the first instance, you're only ever going to find a peak number 1 on the first or the second pyramids. On the higher pyramids, such as 3 and 4, it is read as a number 10. Now, when we talk about the peak year of 1, it's a very practical year. It indicates that there is a period of real individual effort that's required. It is the start of a new beginning, so there's going to be some shifting away from old situations and even relationships, especially if those relationships have been fostering disharmony around the person. Now, the other alternative here is when we're talking about a new beginning, if relationships have been unhealthy and the person chooses to remain within a situation, there is still potential for the relationships to go through a new beginning, because, they might get family counselling or something like that. And the alternative is that the relationship will end. Sorry about that. I'm moving around my microphone. Okay, so some of the new beginnings might be in the form of a new relationship. As I said, it could be a marriage, it could be new business associations and work environments. But the person needs to be assured that these associations will not be severed. So by that I mean, let's say it was your marital partner or whatever, they're not going to be severed, those relationships, unless they have completed the purpose of growth, because obviously we choose situations to help us to grow as individuals and expand our soul. So some people may choose to remain in marriages and attempt to preserve them regardless of the status quo. So this is important to know as well, even though there's a new beginning scheduled. So either way, if there's a new start that refers to an ending of a marriage, just a reminder here, it can refer to the ending of a stage of a marriage as it goes into a new cycle. And that new cycle can be one of heightened commitment, with the people more aware and sensitive towards each other, and with an expanded thinking and spirituality. So with a peak year of 1, we're going to see a real exertion of the individuality, and this is going to continue into the next years. Because the 1, remember, we're talking about cycles here. The 1 is always the first stage of a cycle, and there is always 9 years to a cycle. So whether a person's consciously aware or not, a peak year of number 2 is one where their stronger spiritual values emerge, or where they have emerged and they are aware of them. But lifestyle and habits are going to subtly embrace either the more intuitive or emotional ways of being. Spiritual can manifest with an emphasis on improved state of awareness, basically shifting the focus onto more positive ways of thinking and being aware that thought and belief actually impact on goal achievement and completion, if you like, outcomes, and whether or not a person achieves a goal. Anyway, this is also very dependent on the levels of emotional maturity that have been achieved by a person to date by the time they reach this peak. So let's say if a person was in their mature years and it was on the fourth peak, you would expect that they would have developed a lot of maturity by that stage and be able to really make the most of this peak and to develop this spiritual awareness that helps shift them forward through their life. That's the intuitive aspects and that kind of thing. But anyway, what else? If they are emotionally delayed, that will impact on their capacity to reach this spiritual awareness as well. From a material perspective, it will be a year of hard work, slow progress, quite often the case, because it's a case of learning how to focus that thought consciously so that the good things come at the right time, and remembering and learning at a core level there is a right time for everything, or a divine time. The biggest lesson in a peak year of a 2 is one where we learn to establish our needs, what it is that we actually need, and the way to deal with our needs. And if we try and force material progress while under a peak 2, this could create a lot of conflict and frustrations and actually become quite emotionally and psychologically draining, because we should actually rather be going with the flow a little bit. Just putting the focus on achieving the needs would be a better investment of energy, shall we say. And not only that, because we're allowing things to happen in the divine way, we are then basically setting those structures in for harvest, if you like, over the next years. So you could say under a number 2, that a peak 2, that a person is doing that groundwork, setting themselves up for their career or their home life later on. They might be looking to save money, perhaps to buy a house, their first house or something like that. Or if it's a psychological or emotional type goal that they've got, if they're older and trying to unpack and get understanding about past experiences, this would be the year where they do a lot of self-exploration, looking within. So under a peak 3, it is most likely the person will start travelling, and if they don't travel, they will at least be yearning to do a bit of travel. It's an opportunity for expanding the mind and the intellect, and rather than, in fact, while travel is a good thing, it's a good means for learning, the opportunity to expand the mind and intellect is actually the best direction of their efforts under this vibration. But because it's a year for reviewing and, if I can speak, analysis and learning, so the point is that if they're going to travel, it would be a good idea to use that travel as a means of learning and expanding their own awareness and understanding, not just of life and other people, but also themselves. The reality too is, if a person chooses to ignore, because we've got choice here, the development of their intellect under this vibration, there is a very real risk that they will become destructively critical, and that this will impact upon their relationships in negative ways, even to the point that they might become unpopular with other people. The vibration of a peak number 4 is one of material power and success, and of course this is for those people that are prepared to work hard for it. It's set, basically, it shows the potential for a year of great achievement, especially for those people who desire understanding and knowledge. This will be a year that bodes well for increased learning, awareness of themselves and of other people. It's associated with physical work, so that work will also pave the way towards personal development. Once again, there is a caution, because there's always a caution, there's always that yin yang. For those people who are overly ambitious and materialistic, and who can be a bit mercenary in their interactions with others, they can expect to experience a sense of loss due to a lack of personal maturity. Now, if this is the case, there's going to be a manifestation, most likely, I've got to be careful how I phrase this, a manifestation of health conditions at the same time as the loss, because this allows them to reflect on the direction of their life and to reassess and to create a new approach that is far more aligned with collective values and considerations. So I guess within the context of looking at the pyramids and peaks, if you were seeing this for yourself as an upcoming you would read it as a caution. If you were a mature person looking backwards, you'd be like, oh, that explains, I was a little too materialistic. And if you're a mum or dad of somebody who's got one of these peaks, the idea is actually to teach them that money's not everything and power is not everything, or true power lies in kindness and, just some of the better qualities of life, so they don't get fixated on money without regard to care and humanity. Look, I think in this day and time, we do see a lot more of these mercenary type of individuals in business that have no regard for the impacts on people of their decisions. I'm not going to go into this here too much. Suffice to say that, as a parent, we're kind of obligated to try and teach our kids that, money is important. We all need money to be able to survive, but we don't need to be making other people's lives unpleasant to get to that goal. So under a peak year of 5, this is actually a really good vibration, I consider, because it's an indicator of significant changes to the emotional state. It's about spiritual growth, expanded awareness, and understanding and raising consciousness. There's a knowledge associated with this particular peak that leads to a greater level of personal freedom. And under a personal or a peak of 5, people actually have that opportunity to strengthen their psychic abilities and powers, because when we develop these gifts, there's a further capacity developed to emotionally regulate and to harness and direct emotional energy toward constructive pursuits. So basically what we're saying is that this is a year that teaches people to be balanced in regard to their attitudes, one towards money and material rewards, also to liberate themselves from things like anxiety, especially over financial concerns and that kind of thing. They learn those lessons that, of the material mercenary of the 4. They've got past it. Now, what can I say about this? Just basically, as we raise our consciousness and we harness or master our emotions and our beliefs and our thought, we're definitely better off or more capable of accessing at least our intuitive gifts, and developing that inner knowing, even if we don't go as far as developing the psychic gifts of, say, the clairs and that kind of thing. I mean, that would also literally be on the cards under a vibration of a 5, but not everybody wants to do that. They're comfortable just to build on that faith connection and to really trust their intuition and trust the creator. They don't actually feel the need to go as far as doing things like tarot, but that's a potential that's offered under a number 5. So under a peak 6, there is a really strong power for creative development. It's a period of the highest mental and spiritual powers combining to reveal to us what our vital role is within humanity. Now, this is what some people refer to as the divine plan. It's also that case of finding out what it is. What is our purpose? What am I here for? What am I meant to be doing? So this revolution, well, it could be a revolution actually. This revelation of information, if you like, usually occurs for those people that are far more mature and self-aware. Okay, so I would envisage for most people it's going to happen on the peaks 3 and 4, if it's going to happen. However, that would be a bit of an assumption too, because young people can actually be very, very mature too. So it might happen on the first and second peak. Let me know if yours is there and let me know how that works for you. But either way, the majority of people who identify their persona with material and physical possessions, they might find that the focus of this time frame is centered around their homes, okay, because the home is very important when it comes to the vibration of the 6. And these people might also experience tendencies to worry about what's happening on the home front. There may even be indications, if they haven't developed this spiritual awareness, that they'll rush into a marriage, and they're advised to exhibit or extend some wisdom and patience during this year so that they don't create, I guess hurtful lessons that are enduring, okay? Because if they rush into things thinking it's the right thing to do, what is that? There's a saying there about, repent in haste, something, act in haste, repent at leisure, or something like that. So basically the message here is, under number 6, don't allow your emotions to dominate your life. Very simple. So under a peak year of 7, there's lots of surprises, lots of changes. For those people that have gone through it, it would likely have been a year of sharing, learning and knowledge, which is why I've put, it's kind of like a teacher, but it's not a teacher because it's more informal. But it is through this sharing of information that we also gain knowledge and understanding, especially when it comes to personal and spiritual development. And this is because as we have conversations with people talk back to us and they tell us their experiences, and that expands the pool of information that we personally understand. Now, this is also something, by the way, that I'm trying to do with Lorena's Labyrinth, is allow a space for people to share and talk informally and to build their own knowledge and help other people to build theirs. But either way, back to the number 7, right? During this year, one, it's obviously a time for sharing your information and knowledge, but the other thing is, as you learn more information, we have that capacity to understand and to rise above problems. Now, if you fail to address these, because there will be tests and challenges involved under a 7 as well, because this is how we learn and grow as well. But basically, if we fail to rise up, if you like, then we need to do more preparation, because if we're going to be able to teach, we've got to increase this pool of knowledge. We've got to be able to learn more. And certainly I would say that it's on the radar at some point in the future for somebody who's got a ruling 7, that they need to be sharing and teaching. And what they would be having to share would be humanitarian type stuff. So where I'm going with this too is that when it comes to the growth, because it's a spiritual number as well, it might be that the person, if you haven't done it, if you're in a number 7, the recommendation would be that you start doing things like yoga or natural therapies, or even some spiritual awareness type courses. And art is another really good way to actually focus on going within and allowing the stuff within to surface. Mindfulness is brilliant. You might want to look at doing meditation as well. Just things like that. They all help to expand personal growth and development. So I'll try and speed things up. Okay, during a peak year of 8, you can expect independence to be a prevailing force. You've got to take a lot of care that you use the power constructively, and that you don't allow individuals to inhibit your ability to be independent, right? If there is an inhibition, basically if you're blocked from being independent, it's going to translate within yourself as the way other people perceive you. You'll be perceived as aloof, because obviously you're trying to hold yourself back, if you like. It takes a lot of energy to not show this desire to be free, especially if you know that it's going to be hurtful to people. And this is the thing, that if somebody is codependent on you or whatever, then it might be a case of please don't go, that kind of thing, and then you suppress an aspect of yourself. So this will then translate as aloofness. So basically, under a peak year of 8, it's a time to allow yourself the opportunity to be independent and know that you're supported by the universe and the people around you. The 8 is a power number. So it's a number of basically unlimited options and potential. So, as I said, it is a power number. It does show unlimited options. The point being that it often brings challenges, okay? The challenges, however, are designed to empower. And the major learning offered by the 8 under this vibration is that power can be used positively or negatively, and that at the end of the day, we, the holder of the power, can control the direction of how we use our power. And we can also determine when to use more force, if you like, of the power, and when to use less. So just as a demonstration of this, let's think of I love this as a demonstration, actually. I talk about it in some of my development classes. When we think about power, we can think about electricity, for example. Too much of it, will blow out a light globe, not enough, and things fail to function. Okay, so when we talk about spiritual power and the power of the mind and all the rest of it and being empowered, it's about learning the right strength to use in the right situation. Now, the benefit of this too is that when we talk about power, we're talking about a person stepping into their power. So, historically, if the person that's having a number 8 has experienced some pretty extreme victimization, they're going to be stepping into their personal strength. Other factors or reminders of this 8 is that power and strength don't have to be loud, they can be a quiet, gentle force. And self empowerment really is a case of taking control of the direction of your own life and not allowing other people to dictate to you or inhibit your desire for independence. And you can do this in loving and kind ways, okay? It doesn't have to be ultimatums or whatever. Now, the other thing too, if we're looking at a peak year of 8 from a reflective perspective, it may have been a year where you experienced social isolation and exclusion on the physical plane, but at the same time, there would be something inside of you that would be saying, even if you're not spiritually aware, there would be something inside of you saying, it felt like it was something I had to do. I just had to do it. I couldn't stay where I was. It was time for me to move on. And that is the gut instinct and the intuitive knowing that is part of your divine plan. So the number 9 is associated with humanitarian activity. So when there is a peak 9, this also is associated with a desire to serve mankind. It requires a great deal of mental astuteness as the people will be analysing and assessing not only their needs but the needs of others. And this can include working towards helping to plan changes of vocation for people, employment, environment. Under a peak 9, lots of people are making demands upon the person's time, your time. Some of these people are going to be genuine, but some of these people will just be artificial time wasters, really trying to extract sympathy. There is people like that, unfortunately, that just want the attention and the sympathy. And they will just, if you feed that actually takes time away from you being able to give and make a difference to the people that are in genuine need. So it's just a matter of not judging them, but being aware that some people just they're not awake yet. It is what it is. So don't judge them. Just review where you direct your time would be the advice. Now, in other instances, some people under a peak year of 9 are going to be motivated to leave home and go travelling. And this might be for things like community aid abroad, but not everybody's going to be in a position to travel. So some people may remain in their home country, perhaps working for these kinds of organisations. But for many, you could expect that there's going to be a relocation or a change of residence, or at least a change of jobs, and potentially even a change of social circles, because this is a year for developing wisdom and maturity and understanding at a really core level the connection between the individual health, community health and wellbeing, and the collective, and understanding that whole concept of the brother and sisterhood of mankind. And we do this through connecting and conversation, if nothing else. You know what I mean? Even if you're not spiritually aware, people still learn these lessons. When I say spiritually aware, let's call it a non-believer. Even if you don't believe in spirit and energy and that kind of stuff, and you're just watching this video because you believe in maths, right? That's fine, because what you will see exhibited here is certain behaviours. Now, I want to make the point that I definitely have seen the 9 when we talk about vocations, basically in the higher education facilities. So that's just worth a reference there, because that is a very busy environment and one where you can help people. Even if you're the receptionist, you're working towards helping people to release tension and overcome their problems. There's so many ways of doing things that are humanitarian. So just a reminder, a number 10 can only occur on the third and fourth peaks. If it comes up on the second or the first peak, it's read as a 1. So the reason why, well, let's just say the 10 is associated with a very special strength and unique power that is developed from years of experience and the culmination of wisdom. It is basically the happy consequence of people's living experiences and their training. Now, you may, if you have a 10 in this year, in fact, parents will be pleased for this. It may be a time of assuming critically important roles that guide and steer others and encourage those people in need. Now, this number definitely, because it's considered to carry heightened spiritual powers, it does also carry responsibilities, and it confers benefits onto the person who has got the number 10 as well as the person they're helping. But of course, this power has got to be used wisely because there is always a responsibility. And at this stage, I must say that people become far more aware of karma. And if they use or misuse their power in questionable ways, they will experience karma a lot more quickly than the average Joe, based on my experiences anyway, and my understandings from speaking to other people. So, when it comes to peak numbers, the number 11 is actually the most powerful number of all of them. And it comes with a lot of karmic responsibility. It can only be found on the higher peaks, and by that I mean 3 and 4, because it takes a lot of maturity combined with this really high level of self-awareness and understanding. But it goes out further. It's not just me. It's about understanding what motivates and drives other people, having compassion for them, even if their apparent characters are not particularly likable. I'm trying to not be personal. Let's say that we saw somebody who was in a position of power, shall we say, that made some very questionable decisions that led to harm to other people. It would be the case of seeing them, understanding, knowing why they do what they do, not judging them, because everybody's on their own path and their journey is their responsibility. I mean, we can try and intervene to a level, but at the same time, whatever actions we might take, they're going to have karmic consequences for us as well. It's very difficult to try and explain this. Basically, I guess by the time we hit a number 11, we're actually at that point in our life where we are able to sustain our own self-awareness, know what motivates us, know what triggers us if we do get triggered, understanding that some things in life are going to conflict with our own personal values and sense of morality, but at the same time having total faith in the universe that whatever happens is happening for a divine reason, and that each one of us will live through karma. Now, the other thing too, I guess, with this is, you see, because as you get to the higher levels, we understand and know. I say we, but I'm not putting myself up there as being a spiritual master by any means, because at the end of the day, I still am very human in the way I respond to stuff. But what I am aware of is that the more we understand and learn and know, the more we experience consequences to actions far quicker than the average person that is not aware of spiritual energy. And I've spoken to a number of teachers where we say that, there's been discussions that, we did something and we received the karma very, very quickly. And the karma occurred in such a way as sometimes, depending on the choices that we made, it can actually be really quite painful. It's, I'm sort of mindful that I'm on YouTube. It can be quite kick-ass and seem a little bit extreme based on whatever actions that we've had. We get it quite significantly back at us. So this is why the number 11 is associated with mastery. We do not act in ways that will bring or incur this negative karma to us, because we recognize and know, I would say we as in I aspire to act in such ways that I create positive karma. And this would be the person that's got spiritual mastery. They are aware of their accountability. So going into it in a bit more detail, I'm aware that obviously this video is long and I'm waffling. Okay, so the key ingredients about the Peak 11 is this understanding about self, which is essential to staying present in the current time frame and building positive solutions for the future. The ability to lead and teach under this vibration for the best outcomes means having a deep understanding of self, having a deep understanding of the motivations of others, and choosing to respond creatively as opposed to reacting emotionally. Is what creates the responses or the outcomes. And so therefore, if we're reacting emotionally to stuff, there's a real risk we may create undesirable situations for ourselves and others. So in the best of cases, we're talking about a number that reflects heightened levels of intuitiveness, inspired action, compassion, temperance, patience, and integrity are pivotal to creating the most optimistic outcomes. And to be able to get to these, we have to have spent some considerable time in reflection and meditation. Now, just so you know, if you hadn't thought of it, compassion includes the practice of philanthropy and caring for those people that are less fortunate than ourselves, and doing so in practical ways. Harmony with all of life is the aim under this vibration, especially with other humans. And temperance is this ability to have a balanced expression and to be moderate in all of our undertakings. And it is through meditation that let me rephrase that. Meditation will help to assist to reach this level of enlightenment or increased awareness and understanding of not just ourselves, but also other people and the process of life. So we can see under the Peak 11, there's a restoration of the heart, mind, and body, and a capacity and need to draw upon self-discipline to ensure that personal integrity is always maintained, and that this means that not only our actions but our words, that they are linked together. We mean what we say what we mean, and they are all underpinned by kindness and compassion. Whatever we do, whatever we say is driven by kindness, love, and compassion. And when we take this path, we're going to ensure that no negative forces can prevail, that there's no blocks or impediments to our spiritual developments. We recognize that we're not able to control other people or even our environment, but we can control the way we respond to any given situation. It's a particularly powerful year to develop this spiritual connection and growth if it hasn't happened already. And it is a year that offers opportunities to teach and lead by example. So the peak number 11 concludes the content on peak numbers of the pyramids. If you've got questions, do put them up. I just thought I would touch on before I close for today that next week I'm going to do name numerology because I've missed that one. I'd forgotten about it. But basically that's identifying some real personalized content in regard to numbers. You'll see when I load it. And then the other thing I'm doing consideration to is whether or not to do the how to calculate your karmic path. That one refers to what you were born in with. You know, if we say that we've got past life karma, which we do, those of us that believe in a divine plan will say we're coming with past life karma, and then we've got the karmic path for this life. The planet, we're walking the earth today, and then there is the karmic goal, if you like. So I'm doing an inner debate at the moment as to whether or not I'll teach you how to do that, and if I do deliver it, whether or not I'll put it up as a members only thing. But I'll have a think about it. If you're interested in that, do make a comment, and keep an eye on the channel for updates. So, my friends, that's it for today. We've done just about all of the content on numerology now. I hope if you've stuck in with this peak pyramid stuff and you've got to this part, I think congratulations to you. Do have fun. I hope you really enjoy playing around with the numbers and certainly the peak pyramids, and getting some kind of understanding around your relationships and your own life experiences. For now, though, I'm going to say love you, leave you. Thank you for being part of my journey. I shall catch you on the next video. Bye-bye for now. Stay blessed.